She came to finalize the divorce with steady steps and dry eyes. But the moment he looked up from the papers, his world stopped breathing. The pen slipped from his fingers. Her face was thinner, her eyes older. And her belly, 7 months pregnant, was impossible to ignore. In that second, every word he had rehearsed vanished. If you've ever believed some endings are final, stay with this story till the very end, because sometimes life waits until the last moment to reveal the truth. They had once been the couple everyone admired. Arav was calm, practical, always believing logic could fix anything. Mira was emotional, soft-spoken, the kind of woman who loved deeply and quietly. Their marriage didn't break because of hatred. It cracked slowly under misunderstandings, unspoken pain, and Arav's constant absence. He thought providing money was love. Mira needed presence. Nights passed where she waited with dinner cold on the table, convincing herself tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow never was. When Mira discovered she was pregnant, she wanted to tell him immediately. But that same night, he came home angry, accusing her of being dramatic, of always complaining, of suffocating him. The words cut deeper than he knew. Something inside her shut down. She decided not to beg anymore. She packed her clothes, left a note asking for divorce, and walked out with a life growing silently inside her. Months passed with lawyers and cold messages. Arav signed the papers mechanically, believing separation would bring peace. It didn't. His house felt louder in its silence. Still, pride kept him from calling her. When the final court date arrived, he expected closure. What he didn't expect was the truth standing in front of him. Mira stood there composed, but inside she was shaking. She hadn't planned to reveal the pregnancy that day. She wanted to finish everything and disappear. But fate doesn't always follow our plans. Arav's eyes were locked on her belly, his face pale, his voice barely working as he whispered her name. The judge asked if both parties were ready to proceed. Arav couldn't speak. The courtroom felt too small for the storm inside him. Outside, he finally found his voice. "Why didn't you tell me?" His question carried anger, pain, and fear all at once. Mira looked at him calmly and said, "Because I needed peace more than promises." Those words hit harder than any argument they'd ever had. She told him how lonely she felt, how she cried herself to sleep, how the child inside her felt like the only one who truly stayed. If this story is touching your heart right now, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because stories like these remind us how fragile love really is. That night, Arav didn't sleep. Memories replayed on loop, missed calls, ignored messages, moments he chose work over her. For the first time, he understood that love doesn't disappear loudly. It fades quietly when neglected. He went to her parents' house the next morning, not with excuses, but with shame. He asked to see her, not as a husband demanding forgiveness, but as a man realizing his mistakes. Mira listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said softly, "I don't need grand words. I needed you when I was breaking." Arav nodded, knowing she was right. The divorce wasn't stopped that day. Mira asked for time, not for reconciliation, but for honesty. And that pause changed everything. If you think this is where the story ends, don't go anywhere. Because what happens next will change both their lives forever. Part 2 hook begins now. Just when Mira thought she had protected her heart enough to survive alone, life tested her in a way she never imagined. One night, severe pain forced her into the hospital. Arav, called in panic, reached before anyone else. Watching her struggle in the hospital bed shattered the last wall between them. Fear doesn't lie. Love shows itself in moments like these. Complications arose. Doctors spoke in cautious tones. Arav stood outside the ICU, praying the way he never had before. In that moment, he realized he wasn't afraid of losing his marriage anymore. He was afraid of losing his family. When Mira finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was him, exhausted, broken, but there, not leaving, not distracted. Weeks later, the baby arrived safely. A tiny heartbeat filled the room, rewriting every past mistake. Arav held his child with trembling hands, tears falling freely. Mira watched silently. She didn't rush forgiveness. She didn't rush love. She watched consistency. Arav changed, not overnight, but daily. He showed up. He listened. He stayed. The divorce papers were never signed. Not because of the baby, but because two people finally chose to fight for understanding instead of winning arguments. Healing wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, slow, and real. They learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Months later, Mira said something that stayed with Arav forever. "I didn't come back because you begged. I came back because you finally became the man I needed." If this story made you feel something, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and remember this, sometimes life doesn't give second chances. But when it does, it's to teach us how to love better than before. In the end, the divorce that was meant to close a chapter became the moment a family was truly born. Just when it felt like everything had already been lost, life proved it wasn't done yet. Mira thought walking back into Arav's world for legal closure was the hardest thing she'd ever do, but fate had something heavier waiting. A sudden sharp pain tore through her body late that night, leaving her breathless and shaking. The phone slipped from her hand as her mother screamed for help. The call that went to Arav was unplanned, unwanted, and unavoidable. If you think this part is about forgiveness, stay till the very end, because sometimes love returns through fear, not words. Arav reached the hospital faster than he ever reached home during their marriage. His hands were trembling, his mind screaming with guilt. Seeing Mira on the stretcher, pale and struggling, broke him completely. Doctors rushed her in, speaking of complications, of stress, of risk. 7 months pregnant, high blood pressure. Arav stood frozen, realizing how close he came to losing everything without ever knowing what he had. Hours passed like years. He sat outside the ICU, replaying every moment he ignored her tears. Every night he chose silence over comfort. For the first time in his life, success meant nothing. Money meant nothing. All he wanted was to hear her voice again. If you're feeling this pain with him, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because stories like this remind us how fragile tomorrow really is. When Mira finally woke up, weak but alive, the first face she saw was Arav's. No anger, no accusations, just quiet tears rolling down his face. He didn't apologize right away. He didn't promise anything. He simply said, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Mira turned her face away, not because she didn't feel it, but because feeling it scared her, more than loneliness ever did. The days that followed were slow and heavy. Arav stayed. Not for an hour, not for show. He learned her medicines, spoke gently, listened more than he talked. Mira watched silently. She didn't trust words anymore. She trusted patterns. And for the first time, his presence didn't fade. The baby arrived earlier than expected. The delivery room was filled with fear and prayers. Arav held Mira's hand as she cried out in pain, his grip tight, his voice breaking as he begged her to stay strong. When the baby's cry filled the room, something inside both of them healed, and something else broke open forever. Arav held his child with shaking hands, tears falling without shame. Mira watched him, searching for the man she once loved, and finding someone new, not perfect, not heroic, but real. Later that night, she whispered, "I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I stopped feeling loved." Arav nodded, knowing this truth would stay with him forever. The divorce papers remained unsigned, not because of the baby, not because of pressure, but because two broken people chose honesty over pride. Healing didn't happen in dramatic moments. It happened in quiet mornings, shared responsibilities, and uncomfortable conversations. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope. Like the video and subscribe, because love isn't about never breaking, it's about choosing to rebuild when you finally understand what you almost lost. In the end, she didn't come back to save the marriage. She came back because he finally learned how to stay